What's going on? This is Kevin Holt here with BallherHoops with the five takeaways from the week. And this may not all be like from the week. It may just be five things I thought about this week. It may be just a good conversation to have as we go into the final week of the season. Basketball was really good this week. A lot of upsets, a lot of revenge games. Really good basketball. I got to a couple of them. Saw a couple of them online. Just been a really good week for basketball. I love the competition, the energy in some of the gyms. So it's been a big week for girls basketball. Teams are playing at a high level, and if this is what we can expect in the playoffs, then it's going to be a really good playoff season. Honestly, a lot of upsets, and there'll be some really good games. My first takeaway: revenge games are always great. This time of year, Providence was one of the first really good games I saw. Took out Catholic. First time Catholic won. Wasn't by a whole bunch. Oh, matter of fact, it might have been by a good amount. But this game, you could tell from the jump, it was high energy. Fans were loud. The Providence student section was a huge factor in the game. I think that's always a good thing, especially public schools. They do a really good job. I think private schools could do a better job because a lot of times with private schools they do the factor in as far as the boys teams will get the fans. A lot of teams won't, their fans, student sections won't come until they get to the part where the boys are playing. Maybe like the end of the girls' game, which is kind of sad unless you go somewhere like Canton. Canton has a really good job where their student section comes in early. But back to Providence versus Catholic, Delaney Hill was probably one of the better players on the court, controlling the court most of the game. A lot of ISO. I know some people have that. Well, do you run an ISO or do you run a offensive motion continuity offenses? A lot of people love sets, but for Providence, I think with Delaney Hill having the ball in her hand, they play best, and especially with a low scoring game, she kind of dribbled out a lot of the time. And on defense, they just really doubled down on the bigs, and they made it a low scoring game, similar to what Providence Day did versus Catholic. A lot of times when they're lobbing the ball over to Blanca, you see that backside person come in, and either they're digging down or they're trying to get the ball in the air, which was a great job from them. Then came the big revenge game of North Meck versus Chambers. I was at the first game, and North Meck was really close. It wasn't that far of a lead to where I was thinking, nah, they don't have a chance. Like I, it's not an upset because North is a really good team, and I think they should be considered when you start thinking about state championship. I think they are a really good team, and they'll be there towards the end. One of one got revenge against Asheville Christian. Asheville Christian is a really good NCSA A 3A team. They'll be pretty good this year. But 101 did their thing. They came back and got a good win. Uh, Revenge is on their mind. I think that's one of the biggest things when you play a team once, you get them another chance, get them again. You want to take that win. So great job, 101. They also beat Trinity Collegiate, which is big. Trinity Collegiate is a South Carolina team, and they have some really good players on that team. A lot of D1 recruits, and honestly, one ESPN top 20 recruit in Kiyomi McMillan. So for 101 to get that kind of win, I think that's big for the program. A lot of teams don't understand one win is a, it's like you may not look at it as like this big momentum thing, but it's a lot of momentum, especially going towards the end of the year. They will play for a national championship as they are not in a state association. So that's it for my first topic. Second top, second topic. We have some of the best guard play in the state. I think it's deeper than the top teams. It was a post on Twitter that was asking about the best guards. I don't really get into it much on Twitter because I think there's so many different players, and I'm not really trying to focus on players as a whole. I really focus on teams, but just to put out some other teams that have good guards. We all know Shelby, Cannon, Myers Park, Chambers, North Met. Those teams have really good guard play. But let's talk about some of the others. And it's a lot to name. I think Hickory Ridge has some really good guards as well. I didn't put them in this group, but there are some people that may go kind of unnoticed. I think Providence duo of Delaney Hill and Eva Butler is really good on both sides of the ball. Delaney is really the ball dominant guard, but when you see Eva with the ball, she is just maybe not just as good, but she's really good as well. She's getting to the basket, and remember, she was a big part of that state state semifinal run last year. She ran the ones and twos for them. So I really like what she does with the ball, and she's really great on defense. A lot of times she was killing the guards at Catholic by just making sure she was in the way. Like she was keeping up stride for stride, and then she'll get there when they trying to get to the basket. So I one time get a jump ball, one time get a steal. So please remember that person. Those two are really good. South Mecklenburg doesn't get enough credit with Sonali Moss and Anastasia St. Clair. They're another good duo. A lot, and they do a lot for the Sabres. They really make them go. Lake Norman has a trio of Kristen Lewis, Madison Saunders, and Addison Sirianni. They are a different type of guard group, but they do a lot for their team. I think Kristen Lewis leads them in most stats. She had a really good game versus Hickory Ridge. I just heard today she scored 23 points in the second half alone, which is kind of bananas. But I watched the game and it looked like she was scoring at a high clip. She only hit a couple threes and a couple jump shots. Most of them was off her offensive rebounds, and she's still a really good passer as well. And ball handling, she can do it all pretty much. I think with Madison and Addie, they both are good shooters. They're always ready to hit those big shots. And Madison hit some really big shots in that game versus Hickory Ridge. Then you go to Salisbury. I think Salisbury is one that we kind of forget. Kyla Brown and Rachel McCullough are really good. Kyla Brown, of course, is a stud, but Rachel McCullough just I think hit 1,000 points recently. She's a really good guard that scores a good amount for that Salisbury team. Tyler Bryant's just a different type of beast. She's a 5'10" point guard. You can't really talk enough about her. She does a really good job of getting Salisbury to where they are. They're 16-1 going into pretty much the last week of the season. I think they'll be a really good group for 2A. And there's a lot of groups I probably didn't mention. I know Independence, everybody knows about Kaylee Carson and Cameron Kitchen. I think they are a really good group. And there's probably some other groups that I'm just not thinking off the top of my head, but everybody understands that there is good guard play here in our area. So, next topic, which is topic 3, I would love to see an area tournament like towards the end of the season with maybe 32 teams, where it's public and private school. Battle it out over 2 weeks to see which team is actually the best in the area. I feel like there are so many matchups that we don't get to see, and you get to see them earlier in the season, but earlier in the season you're kind of figuring out the kinks. It's good to have, but it won't really show you that you're better than a team. Like I think there are a lot of teams that improve. Look at Cannon. Look at Catholic. No offense to Catholic, but they're kind of started out really hot. A lot of people didn't really know what to do with them, and then you see Providence. They figured out a defense to kind of stop them, slow them down, and that kind of got other teams looking at that the same way. Then you got Cannon, who's been super hot. I think they're 11 or 12 wins straight, and they're a really good team. So they played earlier in the season, and Catholic won. But who's to say that would be the same result now? I think it would be a great idea. I don't think it'll ever happen just for the simple fact that we have so many games, and then pretty much as soon as school ball over, it's time for travel ball. And I mean, you look at state championships in March, and then that next weekend is pretty much like kids practicing, getting ready for those AAU tournaments. Because I mean, the first tournament for AAU, most teams is the second week of April, first week of April. Some teams play that first week of April, but most teams will get into that second week of April. Um, Fourth topic, with travel ball season slowly approaching, great segue into it pretty much. But with travel ball season approaching, this was a topic of the travel ball spaces, which is on Twitter. They talked about the landscape of girls travel basketball, and it had me think of our state as a whole. We have so many programs. You have good, really high level circuit like shoe circuit teams. Then you have the independent teams as well. We have some really good programs. I don't want to name programs because then I feel like I will slight some other programs. But we have really good programs in our area, and it's a lot for every level that you can really play for. I feel like parents have to understand what their goal is for playing travel basketball, or if they want to play local basketball, as that should determine who you want to play with. when I say local basketball, that means you're kind of getting ready for the season. Like you getting ready for the basketball season, school season. You want to kind of stay in shape. Not as much money goes into the local season because you're really playing a lot of local area games. Maybe you go to a big tournament one time, but most of your tournaments are local. And there's nothing wrong with that because not everybody wants to play that extravagant schedule where you're going from this place to this state to this state. And that's big because at least you know who you are, what you're capable of. And that doesn't mean they won't go to college because there are a lot of local teams that have players that go to college. But when you play local basketball, you got to understand that's what you want to do. You want to just play high school basketball. You know that the chance of college may not be as great for that kid, and I would never shoot a kid's dream down. But understand your level. We have to understand our level as players and the level of the AAU team. But if you play travel ball, you have to understand the sacrifice that you're making. It's not just going to be, oh, we're practicing once or twice a week. Some of these teams practice 3 times. Some of them practice back-to-back days on weekends. They have trainings, workouts, all these different things come into play because you're trying to reach that next level. When you're playing on a circuit, whether it's shoe circuit or independent circuit, you're saying that okay, I want this. I want to go to college. I want to go play basketball for free. I don't want to. I don't want to be just going to school. I want to go play basketball. And that's the big difference. I feel like a lot of people have to understand that those levels are different. If you just feel like you're just a basketball player, like or that's the difference between I like to play basketball and I'm a basketball player. I'm a baller. Like I want to hoop. It's a big difference. I hope everybody does well. That was one of my tweets I have pinned for my Twitter on my coach Kevin Holt Twitter. Is I pray for every program success and I pray for every kid to get a scholarship because that's really what I believe in. I want every kid to get a scholarship, whether it's athletic or academic, because I think college is a great tool for so many avenues that kids can embark on. So my fifth one is conference tournaments and NCISAA state playoffs are going to be great. So many teams can be considered championship level. Private school brackets will be out next Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, as teams usually start play on Tuesday. Then you got conference tournaments starting around that same time. I'm looking forward to a great February going into March for a select few teams. That March time, that means you're down to the nitty gritty. I think we have a lot of teams that could be in that. So we'll do a Fire 15 probably Saturday just to get it out the way, but I want to try to get that bracketology episode done on Sunday. So next weekend is going to be very busy. But I want everyone to stay healthy and be able to give their best performances. I think that's big for each team, each player. Make sure you're being healthy. Make sure you're doing your work. Make sure that you're doing everything you can so that your team won't have an excuse of our players missing. Make sure that you're doing what you got to do to be there when it's game time. And then when it's time, those lights don't get no brighter when the playoffs come. So you got to be ready. It's a big time for conference tournaments. At conference tournaments, you can steal a couple games, win the conference tournament, that locks you in for the playoffs. So appreciate everybody that listens and that always gives the positive feedback. I love when I'm hearing people say, "Man, I love your podcast." Share it with someone that may not have heard it. Get this word out. We trying to continue to grow the girls' game of basketball. I think it's huge. We have so much talent in our area that is shouldn't be going unnoticed. So I appreciate everyone, and y'all enjoy y'all days, enjoy your nights. Baller hoops.